Good evening. I'm going to finish up this one from last week, or at least try to, put it that way. We're going to start out by giving a little buff on the lid, because I'm not sure I like the lid, so we might have to just up and make a new one. Could have cleaned up a little bit, maybe. Oh yeah, broke it again. Whereas carnauba wax is something else. You just keep breaking it. It's very brittle. Not sure how I broke that one. All I have is pieces of it everywhere. There's a piece of beeswax. So we'll puff the lid first. That'll give us an idea of whether I'm going to like it or whether I'm just going to go and get another piece of curly maple. Which my general thought is probably just going to basically start over on the lid, because it doesn't have quite the curly figure that I would have liked it to have. Once it's shined up, I might be okay with it. I'm still not sure on that part of it. Guess I could flip it over and look at it. I think it would actually look better if it was just plain curly maple. Make it stand out a little bit more, I think. Oh, I got the buffing wheel on there. I might as well hit the outside of this a while. This got its coat of the 3408 on it one day this week. I don't know what day it was. They made a bit of a mess out of it because I was trying to hurry. And the mess came into the fact that I did the inside first. As you can see, it's nice and smooth and shiny and all that good stuff. But I also sprayed activator on it. And I shouldn't have. Or at least I shouldn't have went back to the 3408 on the outside, because I'm probably going to end up sanding this, quite a bit of this on the outside. Because the activator likes to stick around. And when I sprayed on the inside, there was places on the outside that got hit with the activator. And it sits there and doesn't really evaporate very much. So when I put it on the outside, there was places that instantly set up, which is not what I wanted it to do. There's places that's rough. And we'll hit the whole thing here. And then I'll address the bad spots. There's going to be quite a few. I guess we could widen out just a little bit. And there's a bad spot. Leaves little bumps. I can use a straight razor blade as sort of a cabinet scraper. And I'll literally scrape them bumps right off. And as always, its fingers tells you everything. As I rub my finger over it, or thumb, whichever, I can feel them. I can't necessarily see them. Maybe given the right light, you might be able to. We'll get rid of the big ones. Go back and hit it with the buffer. This is some of the things that's not very exciting and glamorous, I guess you'd say. It's all stuff that you have to do to make something nice. You have to be rather careful with these. Well, with anything, you don't want the buffing wheel to be able to get a hold of something, because it will take it right out of your hand, and it'll do it very quickly. There's another spot. You can also sand that too. 800 grit sandpaper, something like that. But it clogs the sandpaper up right away. So if I can scrape it off, that's usually what I do with it. Because those little bumps are actually laying on the surface rather than down in the wood. And I'm really after what went down in, soaked down into the wood. That's where the shine comes from. I say this may take a little while. It shouldn't, but that was me being impatient. So this is what you get when you're impatient and try and do too many things at one time, basically. You may have to get the sandpaper out. It gets a little hard to get down in this groove with the scraper. Just try and find all the spots that I messed up. There's another one. Somewhere there should be a fingerprint. Evidently that wasn't deep enough. It buffed out. Because I didn't even have a glove on my left hand. And I actually was trying to hold it like this and put it on. It didn't work so well. I ended up super glue on my fingers. Like I said, I was just being impatient. And this is what happens when you're impatient. Then it's going to take me twice as long to do this part. And if I would have just waited a half an hour or an hour or the next day or whatever, I won't drop it on the floor. At least there's a rubber pad. Didn't bang it up. I don't need to do any more of that. I put the round ball on to do down in there. Inside here needs a little touch up. And I'll use a real little buffing wheel, like on a Fordham or Dremel, and do the wings and in this area. But like I say, that's not very exciting stuff to watch. But it also swelled up a little bit this week, but it's not. I've had these actually swell up and decide to get really tight, but I'm not really sure that I like the red now that it's there. Sounded like a good idea last week, but doesn't really do what I wanted to do for me. So I think what we'll do is just get another little piece of the curly maple. I'm building some cabinets with this stuff right now, so there's plenty of little pieces around. So let me track down a piece of that. Because there are some of these. That's one of them. It doesn't really. Some of the curly maple just doesn't have as much curl in as you would like. This is really going to come back and bite me in the ass if I can't. I think these little end cuts don't have any curl in them. That's kind of a pain. I kind of have both. I have some that doesn't have much in the way of curl. And of course I brought big boards down. This is going to take a minute, unfortunately. Not to mention my If you were here last week, I said about the dust collector shut off on its own. Well, long story short, the motor crapped out. So that wasn't a very good situation. And maybe we'll do that end of the board. So that become a rather costly situation. I couldn't get it fixed. Well, put it this way. They said it would cost, I'm going to talk about labor rate, $122 an hour. To work on a motor. So we'll have to try and figure out which side I want for the top. That's probably going to be the top there, I would say. Much bigger than what we need, of course. That's okay. Get her trimmed down in a hurry. So we'll just go corner to corner to mark our center. And that side's boogered up, so we won't worry with that side. And our lid's only about that big. I could. Maybe I should look a little harder at it. This stuff has been run through a surface planer, and you really can't see because it's too light. I come up here. But as I move it around in light, you can see the figure going across. It's also a little tear out right there, there. And that's what a thickness planer likes to do with this stuff. Stuff is rather difficult to work with. So maybe instead of doing that, give ourselves plenty of room. Be right with you. Just cut it on the table saw. Easier, safer, the whole 9 yards. It's not very straight. That end is okay. So now we have more of a blank the size we need. And my 6-inch, still not long enough. So I'm kind of a little behind here tonight. Like I say, this stuff, to work with it on the lathe is really not too bad. To work with it as flat work, really not a whole lot of fun. So I would say we're still going to use that as the top side. Normally when you glue up panels doing furniture work, enough of a mark. It's actually very simple. Just do it the cheater's way and do it right up against the chuck. This stuff, it just likes to chip out all over the place. So in order to glue up panels, I'm literally sawing them to get a good glue joint, which takes forever. Takes a considerable amount more time than if I could just cut them and run them through the joiner to get a nice straight edge and join all the edges and get really nice, simple, easy joints in a hurry. And it's taken me all afternoon just to glue up 4 panels for drawer fronts. And when it comes to running it through the joiner and the planer, and you got to take really, really super light cuts. I don't know if you've ever seen me do it this way before or not. I do it this way a lot of times because it's really a simple way of doing it. And what we'll do, we'll just get it round. It's basically held between centers. It's not a super ton of drive. You're gonna have to be a little bit more gentle on you doing it this way. Yeah. Now drop everything tonight. The other thing I should have probably done is open the jaws up further. Give it a little wider support. The face of the jaws is nice and flat, so it's really a simple way of doing it. Start out slow. Bring the speed up a bit. Get rid of the square corners. Could have cut them off on the bandsaw, or even a fat saw, taking the corners off. So this is really just as easy, and probably a little quicker. So we're not completely round, but 1 or 2 more little cuts, and we will be. Don't necessarily want to blow off the other end. Do it very quick, carefully. Also left to some nice razor blade edges. So now, need our dividers, and we need about 1 3/8 inches, 1.5 inches. Doesn't really matter on this part of it, just something to be able to give us an idea where we need to be. Kind of need our tool rest over here. We'll just make a little pennant. Doesn't need to be much. We're not holding a very big piece. So, yeah, we're done with our tailstock. Everything else will be done on the chuck. And I guess it would make more sense if we go to there, or do we go strictly to there? Let's go to there for now. So first order of business is going to flatten it out. Now we have the center point in there. And if my memory serves me right, we need about 1 7/8 on the jaws. And we'll expand into this groove, into that. And I think on the other one, related, we normally do, yeah. We put a bead on the inside of it, so that's what we'll do again. And that'll be our holding point. So we'll get out here close to the end of the tool rest where I can have better access to it. It's just a matter of rocking this back and forth. And we're looking for the center to disappear. That'll give us, it'll tell us that we're at a complete circle, or complete bead, I should say. I probably should have looked before I put that away. Yeah, that's good. So now I can basically get rid of the material. Sort of getting ahead of myself a little bit here on this, I think, because we didn't size it. So that just gave us a little place. Tiny little recess underneath the bead. And that gives us a place. You can even put a couple little lines in there, make it look like you tried to do something. So that'll work. Now we'll get rid of a little bit more material out here, and then we'll make it to the right size. And tool rest needs to go down. It's probably a little bit concave, which is what we want, which it is. Got a lot concaved, actually. Yeah. That's okay. We still have to get a measurement off of the bowl part of it. Like I said last week, these are kind of challenging to actually get a really good measurement on them. So we'll make it so that it's a little bit bigger than what we want. You can always take more off, but we can't put more back on. So there's our mark. Now I'll take it down to that mark. And then we'll fit it. Still just a shade on the tight side. And I sort of have to step back and look and make sure that this is flat and not running like way uphill or something or other. This is one of these boxes that basically a lid that doesn't really make any difference if it's a little bit loose because it can't go anywhere. But now we need a little bit of a tenant or a ledge, I guess you would say, more than a tenant. We'll just take our parting tool, a normal 1/8 inch parting tool. We'll go in just a little way, make a second cut, and I'll come in at an angle. This whole thing can be at an angle. That way it'll sit on the outside rim. That way. That seems okay, I think. And we need to actually sand it. So, get some sandy paper. We'll slow our speed down considerably. I'm a dust collector, so I'm going to have to live with the dust tonight. Around those little edges a little bit. Go in here and take some sanding on the inside of that. Touch the outside of the bead just a little bit. And I could probably sand just a little bit of this outside edge right here. There won't be much of this left. Anyhow, I waste to sand that at this point. One last check. It wobbles, which that's good. Like I say, these dumb things can become tight after a time because wood moves. So, yeah, well, I could finish the bottom, but so now I'll expand out underneath that rim. I'm not putting a ton of pressure on it. I don't need a ton of pressure. I just need it to hold it so that we can do the rest of the top. And if we did everything right, this should spin nice and true, which it does. Now I'll get rid of a bunch of material. Start working on our shape. And just like the last one that we did, we'll sort of make this a little OG type shape. We'll make a curve on the outside. Make it down fairly small. And then we'll sort of blend these two curves together. Make this a little bit more of a curve. And it's got some, as I spin it around, you can see it's got some nice chatoyancy to it. Now that doesn't necessarily leave me the best finish cut. But now we'll come back and we'll go and make a finish cut. And that should have gave us a nice clean surface, which it did. Difference between having to start sanding it. Hi, honey. So I need to leave just a little bit of a flat area right in there. Not like that, not much. You and the kiddo having fun? Oh, that's right. You guys are making shirts. And you have all the vinyl cut for all 19 of them? That sounds like a pretty productive day. My day was semi-productive, I guess. I got 6 out of the 8 drawer fronts glued up. Stuff's a pain in the ass to work with. Can't run it through the joiner. It takes big chunks out. Oh, she's sitting in her chair looking out the window. What else would she do? You left? Right after you left, I was upstairs for something or other, and she was sitting in her chair just kind of looking dejected, like, my mommy left me. I'm here all by myself. But when I went up and had lunch, she was my buddy. Of course. So now I got that nice and smooth, scratch free, hopefully. Does have a little bit of nice chatoyancy to it. I hope. We're gonna find out here in a second. Get a glove. Oh, that's a good glove. Don't make them gloves like they used to. And we'll get a new one. So we use our normal 3408 finish. Well, can't even hardly read it anymore, but it's a slow setting CA glue. And we can slow this down to nothing. I'll fold that paper towel over a little bit, keep some of it off my fingers. And we'll just put a nice saturating coat on it. We'll rub it in good. I want it to saturate it. And we have 40 seconds to get our job done. So as you can see, I'm in no hurry to do anything else to it at the moment. Use the other half of the paper towel. And then we'll just wipe off the excess. Because I don't want anything that's sitting on the surface. All I want is what went into the pores of the wood. And we will hit that with a little bit of activator. One or two little squirts, that's all it takes. And I guess I might as well track down a drill bit. Because we need to drill a hole for our finial. Quarter, how about 5/16? You know what? I think the last time I decided that I didn't want to use brad point, the brad point has a long point on it. Well, there's my little son-in-law. He must have nothing better to do. He's out on a business trip. That's why the wife had to go down and babysit his wife. Thank you for the sub there, Cody. So we'll get a drill bit. I think with these, I think the small one is a quarter. I think it goes up too quickly. Yeah. These go up by 1/8 of an inch, so I guess we'll just do a quarter. These will drill me a nice flat flat bottom hole. And we'll bring it up, let it find its center, and then I'll lock the tailstock. Have a little bit more speed than that out of it. And should be able to drill whole depth of the drill bit. Yep. It's not the end of the world if you draw out the other side. just means that you have to plug the other side. So that's our, as you can see, as you move it around in the light, if I get it in the right place anyhow, you can see the lines going across there. It'll give us some nice chatoyancy, as they would call it. And don't put it in there. We'll sit it on the workbench, and we're going to make a finial for it. And I think we'll do black. If I can remember where I put the piece of wood. There it is. And this is going to be a Brazilian ebony. It's not going to need to be real long. This piece is 10. Might as well just kind of whack this piece in half. Yeah, mine too. I definitely like the curly woods. Now the question is, I think I tried this earlier and it didn't really, this piece is not square enough. I don't, yeah. Let's try something. I'm probably going to change in jaws to do the job. And let's go back. I have not done a whole lot with elm. Elm has a big open grain though. That's one thing. I have done some stuff with the elm as far as filling the grain and stuff like that. So we'll just sort of go corner to corner on this. Yeah, it's a curly maple. Cameras don't necessarily do it the justice that it has, but unfortunately I need a brighter light to be able to see what I'm doing. So we mark our two centers, and we'll put this between centers. This stuff's so hard. So you just use the spring punch and be done with it. This is what you call poor man's blackwood. Because it is, this one does look like it has a little bit of brown in it, but for the most part, what I had gotten, I got this years ago. Really need to find another place to get some more of it. Come on. Hit the hole. There we go. Because it does nice on the finials and things like that. And it wasn't super expensive. It wasn't real cheap, but it wasn't wasn't break the bank kind of expensive like the Blackwood would be. So we'll just get it to the round. And then we will go from there. We'll use our skew to get it to the round. Feels like there's still a flat spot. One little flat spot yet. Now we'll figure out which end we're going to use. There's a little more brown in it what some does, but it'll still be plenty dark in color. So let's see what we're at. Because if we go down too small, still at 1 inch, I think. This dumb set of calipers has way too many markings on it. So we're 1 inch. So that means we're going to do a chuck draw change. Or do we do the real cheater move? I've seen it done. I've never really tried it, but we can go into this size circle and here and grab it on the inside of the jaws. I think we'll have a try at that once. That way I won't have to change jaws. So I'll just make a little tenon down here. I think we'll do it at that end. Yeah, I have to do it at that end because I'm going to go down pretty small. and try and make it so that it's flat. Because the inside of those jaws do not have a dovetail. At least I don't think they do. Looks like it could have went. Could go a little bit smaller than that. That should do it. This is what you call the lazy way. Hopefully it doesn't come back to bite me in the ass. So now we'll use the inside part of the jaw to grab it. Bring our tailstock up and make sure we're centered, which we are. I will leave the tailstock there for a while. Now it becomes all spindle work. And since we're going to do finial, I'll switch over to the finial gouge. The only difference is it's a deeper flute, a much smaller point than the normal spindle gouge. Which will allow me to get in there in tighter places. So we know right off the bat that we got to get rid of some material down here. Because we have a point that's sticking in there. And we still have our support, so we're in good shape there. I think instead of tearing the edge off, because this stuff is fairly abrasive. So we'll make it into a little bit of a cone shape, and we'll use our skew to do it. That's probably enough. Bring our tool rest back down because we're done with the skew. We'll say our little flame part's going to be about there. Gonna be the challenging part is we're not gonna be able to finish that off down there. Liable to break though. Let's hope not. It's down nice and small. Right into the corner. Should leave us a nice crisp corner. That should be alright. We can even bring it in a tad closer. So you can really see what we're doing. A little detail. And we sort of had to figure out how big we want the onion shape to be. Sure, there's a science behind that. We're going to call it there. If you've ever watched Cindy Droza do these, she does them in her sleep. Of course, she's done about 1.5 million of them, but I'll shrink the diameter down a little bit. It looks a little fat. Not getting. Look at something once. I think that'll work for that part. Slow the speed way down because really right now you almost have to stop and sand this little bit here. Because as soon as I break that end up, cut that end off down there, it will have no support up in here to sand. So we need to do it like right now. And we'll blend. Sanding allows me to blend some of that little bumps that I was leaving. Get them blended in there and make it nice and flowing. So we'll go right through the whole way through the grits, right up through 800 on this little part down here, so that we can release it down here, the bottom, where I make any of the rest of it. I can't do that. Get in there though. Most of that stuff in there, those little details are actually cut clean enough that they really don't even need sanded. Actually, for the most part, you're putting scratches into them. We'll use the cut edge of the sandpaper to get in there because it's very tight. And I want nice, crisp, clean edges to all this stuff. Don't really want to round them over. Little random orbit sanding wherever I can. It gets rid of those radial scratches. As many of them as I can. Okay, now we're ready to cut that off. And then we'll sand that last little bit down there. This tool rest is just a shade longer. That ain't gonna make no difference. Oh well. So we'll get the last little bit off of there. Hopefully without breaking something. So I'll go back behind it. This thing has a very, very small little point in there. And there she went. I want that to be a fairly sharp point. At least that's what I normally leave them. And now we can sand this last little bit. I just take my sandpaper and roll it. And we'll get in there and take care of that. Be a nice gentle curve. Like everything else, we'll do the complete. And as you can see, this stuff is pretty hard. You could sort of do the same thing with like hard maple and stuff like that too. Same way. The last thing we're going to do is just kind of rub over that point. It's still going to be pretty sharp, but at least it won't maybe necessarily stick your fingers too bad. And we're going to check our tightness. Shouldn't have moved, but when things shouldn't do what they do. So we'll leave something in there. Once again, we'll leave a little bit of a disc in there. That should be it. And then we'll use our parting tool to make a tenon down here. As well as we'll shrink this down a little bit. My tool rest is just a shade close. The reason I say it was a shade close, as I'm trying to back up to catch this, it's rolling down off this part of the bevel, wants to roll down off of that edge, which is just a disaster waiting to happen. So now, I actually need a measurement off of this hole and see if whether I can do my normal of make it too tight, which is pretty typical. We got a ways to go. Oh, before I go get carried away, let's sand this a little bit. Only time we're going to be able to do it. Grab a paper towel. Rather than sticking my fingers in there, I'll use a paper towel to clean it. And we'll do that at 800 is where I'm going to take the sharp edge off. And we'll just break that little corner. See how much of that dirt we left behind. This stuff sort of leaves the dirt in the grain, or the dust in the grain. That's the only thing I don't particularly care for it. But it is what it is. There's really no time like the present, so let's just go ahead and finish it. Or put the finish on anyhow. And then we'll finish up the tenon, and it'll be done. Except for the buffing part of it. So just like what we did on the lid, we'll run it nice and slow. This one we can cheat, we can just literally dribble it right on. That way I get down in those little grooves. That took all of 10 or 15 seconds to put that on. So I'll just let it sit there a minute and spin before we go wiping off the excess. Like we got all the excess off. Might just well make it go a little faster. We'll just hit it with some activator. I think we'll give it a couple seconds and let that do its thing. Get rid of a glove. And then we'll make our tenant. And then we'll see how we did. Should be dry enough. I won't spin it super fast like I was. And we're doing a tenant anyhow. I don't need it to go crazy. But we do need to set a diameter. It's just about there. There. Now we need to get up underneath the dome part at the top. Don't know if I made this wide enough. Nope. We can make it wide enough though. It's still not going to work. To get my trusty little itty bitty. And we're going to have to move the tool rest a little bit. This is what you do with the little miniature Sorby 1/4 inch skew. This is what I use it for because it's really worthless for a skew. And it's actually sharpened at a quite long angle. It would be better if it actually had a little bit of a burr on it, but that's okay. It'll cut just the same. This is going to allow me to get up underneath there and go right down to my tenant size that has already been established. Now, of course, the real trick is how long or how deep is this hole. Less than that. So we're just kind of eyeball it, and we'll go on the side of shallower. But that piece right there is actually thick enough right now. I could put it back on and drill it deeper anyhow. So I'm just going to give myself a place basically to cut it off. It's about the only time this thing actually gets used as a skew. So we'll just make little V cuts down there to nut to the center point, like such. We could even make sure that's a little bit tapered there. So it doesn't have to be pretty, that's for sure. That is basically the one sole purpose that I use that tool for, is to cut up under, get up underneath things like finials and such things as that. I just use a little flush saw, cut it off. See whether it's too long, which it probably is, or too fat. A little bit of both. There's what our finial is going to look like. But I did make it a little on the fat side, which is normal for me. It's either one or the other. But we're not screwed yet. A couple ways to take care of this. We could sit here with a little knife or whatever and trim some of that back, which is the way I do it a lot of times. Or since this still has a recess on it, we're going to put the recess back in there, and we're going to open that hole up just a little bit. At least it sounds like a logical plan. And there's a little piece of trash. I quit saving little itty bitty things like that. Yeesh. Drop everything on the floor. So it goes right back in our recess. Actually, probably if we were so minded, you could probably go, no, let's not say we did. I was going to say I could probably go to the next size up in drill bits. That's probably too much. So we'll just go back to our trusty little, teeny tiny little skew. Will that work? Not sure about that. It's probably not going to let me get the whole way to the bottom, for one, because it is only 1/4 of an inch wide. But I may actually be able to take a little piece of sandpaper. That's enough. But now, I'm going to put the drill bit back in. Come on, don't break. And drill it just a little bit further, a little bit deeper. Because it's bottoming out. Another way would be to try and take a little bit off of that finial, which is a royal pain in the ass to do. Much easier just to take and drill the hole a little deeper. And it didn't need very much. 1/16 of an inch maybe. And now our finial goes the whole way on. always ways around trying to fix your, basically to fix your mistakes, I guess you would say. So we can zoom out so you can see it. So that's what our lidded box will look like. This needs to set for a little while before we can buff that. We're going to move on to something else, and we'll come back maybe before we're done, and I'll buff them 2 pieces, and then we can glue that in, maybe. I still have to put finish on the bottom of this yet. I could probably do that right now, would be smart. It sits in there. It does have some movement, which is okay as far as I'm concerned with something like that. I don't want a super snug fit because changes in humidity, all of a sudden that thing will not come off. So that's what it'll look like from the side. A little bit more final, sort of final touches on it, and it'll be done. Set that there. No time like the present to finish the bottom. Don't know. Will that be? That should work. Thank you. They are a bit more of a challenge to make in some ways, but they're kind of fun. They're sort of a conversation piece. I mean, I don't know that there's really any real practical use for them, but they generally strike up a bit of a conversation. And I should put another glove on. This would be better. This is where I should have finished the underside while I had it still available in the chuck. But we'll just basically just do the best we can. We can get everything around there. Do the outside rim first. That's why I was smart enough to put the glove on. So I'd do it without the glove. I guarantee I'd stick my fingers fast to something here. I want to get down in that little crack out there as best as I can. You can see I'm already sticking my fingers fast to the glove. So the smarter way is going to be do that little bit out there, let it set for a couple seconds, and then we can wipe off the excess out there. And then we can go ahead and do the inside. And that's it. That's all there is to it. One coat and done. That's what I like about it. Versus what I'm doing right now as far as in the shop here, building a cabinet or a dresser for my granddaughter that's going to arrive in this world in about a month, somewhere there, give or take a little bit. All that stuff gets a. This is all what I'm working on is all finished natural, no stain involved. So that gets a. That all gets a coat of shellac, the Zinsser seal coat, and then that is sanded back, nice and smooth, and then 3 or 4 coats of lacquer, which is sprayed on from there. So it's a bit longer of a process, considerably longer actually. So we're into finials tonight, so that's our next thing, because I have a little hollow form that we did. This is actually a side grain hollow form. So now we're going to make a finial. This is some spalted maple. I'm not sure that's necessarily the best choice of wood, but it has some interesting, got a dark streak, it's got some spalting lines in it. So I thought it might look interesting. So we'll find out. I'm going to mark some centers on it. It's pretty much like everything else. We're going to start between centers, get a tenon on this on one end, and then we'll grab this, and this one's going to be considerably bigger than what we just did, so we'll be able to do things a little bit differently with it. It is soft down there, quite soft. That could sort of come back to bite us in the ass. Just do it the easy cheater's way. I do have basically it's a steb center. Goes into the chuck. That way I don't have to take the chuck off. So we'll go in between that center. And I think we want the regular live center in that end. Because this piece is probably considerably too long for what we need. And we'll see, it might be too soft too, but hopefully not. See, it looks like we could actually start out with the longer tool rest. Yeah, just deal with it. Spin the work, we'll go back to our skew for some of this. I try and work with the skew as much as I can. That way it keeps my skill level up on the skew. I did sharpen it this time around a little bit, just a diamond hone. Clean up that edge a little bit, because it felt like it was getting a little dull. Plenty of speed. Do the peeling cut. Very, very quick. All we want to do is get rid of the corners at this point. It's probably not down to round yet. That part is. And now we can make it clean, at least that end. That's what I was worried about right there. But we just have to make sure we can do all nice clean cuts. Tool rest was just a tad high. We'll probably do more. We'll probably do a lot more of this with the skew maybe than the spindle gouge. Now we have a cylinder. It's going to give us some, and this is good. That other piece of wood is English walnut, so this nice dark streak running up through there will give it some, should give it some nice character, I think. So we do need a tenon down here. Grab it in the chuck. That'd be a small, shallow tenon. Put it that way. We can make it 3/8 of an inch long, but that's kind of the interesting part of using that particular drive. Is since it's in the chuck, that's about twice the distance there that I want to see, but it also gives you a visual reference that you don't have to. They don't have to measure and fart around with any of that. But like a lot of other don't breathe in while you blow, dummy. They are actually kind of expensive for what they are. At least I felt they were. So that gave us a nice, almost perfect tenon. That's about what I wanted to see. That's pretty much as close to a perfect circle as what you can get. I could have brought the live center up first. That would have made more sense. Because it'll go back in the same hole that it was in. Not that it really makes a whole lot of difference. Like I say, this piece is way bigger than what it needs to be. I don't have a real good way of saying, well, it should be 3 inches tall, 4 inches tall. So we need a little room down there. So that's we need that. So if we do figure it's going to be 4 inches long, I think that's probably a little bit, probably too long. So what I'm going to do, I might as well put a little tenon down here. Even though I don't really know what I would do with a little itty bitty piece like that, but I might as well. Although that right there is pretty well rotten. No point. I'm not necessarily sure what I'd use it for, but I'm going to bring the live center back up because that's a lot of area hanging out in no man's land basically out there. So if I don't, then I can't be quite as aggressive. It's not doing too bad, but it's not doing great, that's for sure. I mean, that'll sand easy enough, but it's not really cutting as cleanly as it could. I think first order of business is going to be set a diameter for this tenant. In that, you can see not a whole lot. That's also gonna show me where our shape is gonna go from, or go to, I guess you'd say. So that's going to be the size of our tenant right there. It's going to go in that lid, or that box. It's enough of an overhang. I was thinking it was going to be more than that, but kind of is what it is. Ah, there is the almighty catch. Had a brain fade. We took out big chunks. Not surprising. That's okay. All that will go away. Make sure we got rid of all that. Still a little bit there, but that's gonna go away when we make, because we'll do the same, basically the same shape as what we just did, only on sort of a bigger scale, I guess you would say. So now we'll pretty much switch back over to the spindle gouge. We don't want to screw up things twice. We might be able to use a skew somewhat up in there. Just sort of like the other one, it's just creating a cone. And I'll go back and make it smaller. Listen, we probably don't need to make it super small, because it is going to be a much bigger project, so to speak. I'm going to stop and see whether, make sure I'm not wasting my time, that it's cutting cleanly. It looked like it was, and it is. So that's a plus. Lots of speed and a light touch. So thinking the end of the onion is going to be about there, maybe. Something along those lines. So I'll mark where that's going to be. Make a V cut to get rid of some material. Give me some room to move. And now we can sort of go in both directions. Now that we have the bottom of it sort of established, we can come back up here. And sort of figure out where we want to go from there. And then we'll come back up and thin down up here. A little thicker than what. Stop and look at it once, make sure. It is tearing some of it up a little bit. Just need to be a little bit more gentle. The problem with this spalting is some of it is getting a little bit far along. I guess would be the easiest way to put it. In other words, it's just about ready to consider it rotten. We'll just try and make nice little light, gentle cuts. The bevel supported cut. There's no scraping involved here. It is going to sing a tune out there, that's for sure. And that pretty much took care of. We're pretty much getting into where it's solid, or there's a little bit right there yet. This is still a little bit beefy, I think. I don't think I really want this one to actually be real dainty. I usually don't make any of mine real dainty like some of the people do. It still looks... something's out of whack with it. Probably right here. How you doing? What other place are you talking about? You talking about Twitch? I don't get a whole lot of interruptions on Twitch. This is actually being broadcast on both at the same time. I don't get a whole lot of people that talk to me to start with, unlike some of the, and I know what you're talking about, some of the people get lots of people that are talking to them and people talking amongst themselves. There's still something out of whack here. Oh, yeah, well, YouTube's getting more and more of them too, but okay, I think that'll do it. I think we're going to say that's going to do it. Whether it looks right after the fact, we'll find out. Only one time to be able to sand it, which is right now. So we will give it a quick sand. Blending in all the little humps and bumps in there. No. I started there, that was 220. On these little pieces, it's kind of easier to get things right. At least I have an easier time getting things right. Primarily because I'm a lot less aggressive on spindle work like this than what I would be on a bowl. I'll go right through to 800 at this point. Take a little bit off of the point. I don't want it to be a too thick point. Lastly, we'll do a little random orbit in the big part that we can. I think it's going to be a kind of interesting. It's going to give it a little, this should turn fairly dark, I think. So now we can finish off. Here is our tenant that's going to go down in the little hollow form. Plenty tight. That should be all right, I think. May end up being too loose as usual, but I don't really want to get that too small down there. I thought it might look kind of interesting with a little bit of an OG shape to it. Give it a little round. Take our parting tool and go in there and clean that up just a little bit. I think that'll be about good. I hope. This looks like it's going uphill. All right. So let's give that a little bit stand. Nice if my tenant for the where I put my scissors. The chuck would be a little bit smaller than this tenant. I was gonna say, I'm sticking my head in front of what you're trying to look at. Sorry. Just like the last one we started with, the last little bit, we started with 220. We'll go the whole way up to 800. Of course, now the real question is, are we just going to assume, and we probably don't have a choice. No, it's probably going to be way too loose. And then I played with it some more. I think we'll just go ahead and finish it. If it's not, if it doesn't suit me, I will make a, could possibly make a ring to go inside that other piece. Because I think this should have been a little bit bigger in diameter than what I ended up with. But we're going to go ahead and finish it. If it doesn't suit, well, always tomorrow and we'll do another one. Try and try again until you get it right, until you get something that suits you. It's my philosophy on it. We're going to finish it with the Parfix 3408, just like I do with pretty much all of my other turning stuff. Gets finished this way. This is really easy to do, especially for finials and things like that. I use it pretty much for everything, but definitely easier to do with things like this at smaller detail. This being spalted maple, it's going to soak a lot in. As you can see, we're just kind of dribbling it on from the top. This is slow setting, so we're not worried about it setting up as we're trying to do this. I probably could have used a thicker one on this, but I'll give it a shot. Ooh, that's what I thought. It's going to stick fast to my gloves on this. I didn't have no little piece of felt in there to absorb it. Ooh, and another pair of gloves. What's new? Just because it sets up slow doesn't mean it's still not super glue. It will stick to everything and anything. So we're going to wipe off the excess. It gave it kind of a nice look. I'm going to hit it with a little activator about 18-20 inches away. I just want the mist to land down over top of it. I don't want it to necessarily direct spray onto it. It won't foam up or do any of the stuff that some of the other ones will, but just the way I'd rather do it. Now we'll get to see how we did. Just trying to think. This is spalted in there. I don't know that I can get in there with my spindle gouge. I'm going to hit the chuck with that one. How about this one? Still would be the same way. So I guess we're just going to have to part it off. Maybe I'll leave a little bit of a nub or something down here that once the super glue set up and cured, then I could come back and sort of put this in a jam chuck and jam it up against something right there. For right now, I think we'll just take and cut it off. Maybe I'm being overly zealous turning that back on. There's a lot of glue went down in it. Yeah, none of it's coming out, so we're all right. Usually on something that's nice and hard, using a flat side of the parting tool will actually act as like a negative rake scraper for you. As long as you're making a very, very, very light cut when I do that. Actually, it looks like the spalted part is actually gonna, sort of looks like it's gonna cooperate. I'm sure there'll still be a little bit in the middle. We're definitely going to have some in the middle that's not going to cooperate. So I will cut it off a little bit long. I would definitely like to rather sand that little bit. What did I knock down? Oh, I knocked that spur drive down. Okay, where'd you go? but it didn't do real well in there. So we'll have to come back, and this will have to get sanded with a disc sander, which is easy enough to do. The real question is how sloppily big it is on there. It's plenty big. It definitely, well, maybe not. It ain't bad. So let's get widened back out. And then we can see. So I guess we could spin it to look like that sitting on the table. Can't let go of it, but that don't look too bad. Looks about okay to me. I'm just going to leave that one sit. We'll go back to the other one. Thank you. I got a question for you, Alfred. How did you find me on YouTube, if I might ask? Got to move some things out of my road here. I'm going to give this little guy a buff, or the other ones that I did earlier. Try and get some of this stuff finished up. Oh, okay. So we'll give these other things that we did earlier a buff. And we should actually have pretty much a completed project. This being on a Morris taper definitely needs a drawbar in it, or it will wander off. It can, I should say, which would not be a good thing. So we buffed that. We'd have a little bit more on that. This is what we started with tonight. This is the lid for the 3-corner box from last week. We're going to give it a buff. We're going to use Vonnex to buff it. It's spinning at about 1700 RPMs. Real challenge to get in there in that little groove. We'll just use the edge of the wheel. And I lost where I was at on the inside. Does have a little bit of a nice chatoyancy to it. Move it around in the light a little bit. Fingers tell all. You'll find any place that you have any little imperfections in the finish that way. Now the fun one to buff is the finial. And yes, I do buff them. Very gently. You won't necessarily put it up against the wheel and try and spin the whole way around. At least on that part up there. I'm not putting a whole lot of pressure against the wheel. You can see right there, it doesn't take much for it to get a hold of it, especially when it's something small. We can go in a multitude of directions, which can help us on something like this. So that's basically the polishing part. As you can see, it brought it up to a nice shine. Anything left to do to that, at least to the lid. Anyhow, put a little bit of wax on it, which will be carnauba wax. Yeah, it does a nice simple job. The harder the wood, the shinier it will become. Are you a wood turner? Okay. Were you kind enough to subscribe to mine? I'd like to get to the 50 or so. Would be nice. Okay, that's that. Might as well put the coat of wax on the the base of it while I have it out and ready. Yeah, that's good. I do most of mine live. If you were in there and noticed that, I don't really have I don't necessarily have the time to be screwing around recording stuff and then sitting there and editing it. My work week is about pretty close to 50 hours long, so I don't. This is pretty much my Sunday night episode. This does need a little bit more. I need to do the inside, which is the balls. I could actually do the ball on the inside of that while I have everything out. That's the red, the white, yellow. Looking for my little piece of sandpaper I had out here. I guess I don't have it out no more. Buffing wheels get dirty as you use them, especially the Vonnex one. The Vonnex usually is the only one I clean. As you can see, there was some left over from the last go around. So when I switch over to the balls, I do run them faster because there's less surface area. That was already pretty nice and shiny in there to start with, but we'll get the rest of it. As well as we'll get this bottom. Polished up as best as we can. The very center of anything is very hard to actually get a nice polish on it, but can do the best we can do. And the wings, the upper part of the wings will actually get done with like Fordham and a little buffer. I'm not going to do that tonight though. I'm about done. I'm a truck driver by trade, so me being on my feet all day is kind of difficult for me. These dumb things and their little fuzzies. The little fuzzies love to stick to everything. Might have a little bit too much wax on there. And that's pretty much it for that. I'll show you what it looks like once it's put this stuff away. I'm not going to buff the bigger one, because of the spalting in there. It's best if I leave it go for a day. It has the 3408 actually has a 24-hour cure time. So that's going to wait till tomorrow night or another night. This I could have put in there first. It would have made sense. So that's what we're going to look like. That's sort of a completed project. Finial needs glued in. But other than that, it's tight enough. You can lift the lid off. Still needs a little cleanup in there yet. Like I say, I'll do that with a little miniature. They're not hard. But yes, go watch like I say, I'm doing this both on YouTube and Twitch. So it's on the YouTube channel. So yeah, that's a good place to go watch it. Oh, any of it would be. The way you can fast forward through the parts that's not very interesting, like sanding and all that good stuff. But they're not very hard to do. At least I don't think they're very hard to do, put it that way. So we'll give this a little glue. A little too much glue, as usual. As in probably way too much glue in there. That's more like it. Wonders of paper towels. I'll suck it right out of there. Because it was already a tight fit, so. That's it. That's all there is to it. That's another Parfix product too. Oh, thank you very kindly. I'd be kind of curious tomorrow to give that a buff and see what it looks like. Hopefully it shines up nicely. That's the other thing we could do with that. This out of the road. Because I'm still not totally sure I like the finial. So we can put our sanding disc on there. And let's see. Go 220, 320, 400. This is a really simple way of sanding this stuff, the ends of things like this. It does have some torn grain in here, so we're going to sand a little bit harder than what I normally would. Normally all you got to do is take that nub off. Man. My dust collector crapped out, or I would have that running right now. I normally don't suck any of this dust like this. It's two different kinds of wood, but yeah, they don't have any of the bottom of this is actually, oh shit, I can't think of it. It's a walnut, English walnut. Yeah, I thought it, to me it sort of matched it a little, somewhat. Probably a little overkill on this, but it pretty much took care of what was torn in there, which is what I was really after, was parts that were torn. Anytime there's any kind of a lid or anything like that, people are always going to pick it up and look underneath it. Doesn't matter what it is. They're always looking for, well, they're always looking for two things. Always looking to make sure you signed it. It's kind of amazing that people are actually concerned whether you signed your work or not, but I've gotten that comment quite a number of times that, oh, you signed it. Well, yeah. Isn't that what you're supposed to do? But I guess there's a lot of people that don't necessarily sign their work. I don't put a date on it. I just put the type of wood and my initials on them. Because I'm not very good with a pyrography pen, so I try and keep it as neat as possible. Okay, that'll work. Yeah, I should have left the buffing stuff out. Could have buffed that yet. Yeah, let's get it back out. We'll be lazy and see if we can have it come off. Yeah, yeah. Well, that's sort of what it's about. I mean, yeah, some of the same pieces that I might make by, yeah. Oh yeah, my wife's a decorative painter. I mean, everything gets her initials on it, and I think she usually puts the year or whatever on it. And it's the same way. It's, you may get to be well known at some point. I don't know about the famous part, but at least known that people want to, they're looking for the stuff that you make or whatever. One of the guys that's in our wood turning club here, he's kind of well known with a lot of people, or some people, and they look for his stuff. Yes, it is. Like I say, it's really better if I let it go for the 24 hours. But this seems like it's doing all right. As you do that, at least there's a pile of chips down there. Yep, that'll work. I don't think I'm going to put the wax part on tonight. There's a little place that's going to have to be addressed, but I'm going to let that go and let it cure. The little place right there that sort of pulled. What are you waiting on? It's addicting, I can tell you that much. Yeah. What part of the country are you from? So there's what it'll look like. Probably would display it. Probably like that. And it'll look all right. It's not snug, but it doesn't really wander around, so that's a plus. Yeah, that's a good evening. You know, that didn't make a pile of chips, but we got some things accomplished, which is half the battle. But I think that's going to be, yeah, it's 9 o'clock. It's time to call it a night. I'm going to go have a couple beverages. Oh, you're the one that lives actually close to me. I live in Mechanicsburg. Well, come over sometime. I work Tuesday through Saturday, so I'm off Sundays and Mondays. Is right for right now. You're more than welcome to come over sometime if you'd like. I'll definitely help you get started on what you're doing with wood turning, if you'd like. Come over for a couple hours or whatever. Can be a lot of fun. Can be a lot of frustration if you don't have somebody to get you started off on the right foot, put it that way. Could be a little frustrating. I forgot to put some finish on the bottom of that. Should have did that before I buffed it, but well, I'll probably go back and rebuff that again. Because like I say, there's a little place where some of the spalting is what it amounts to. When I buffed it, it pulled some of the super glue back to the surface. This will probably just drink it in right here. Don't want to run it down over the side though. There we go. Wipe off the excess. My climate, I really don't actually have to accelerate them. Super glue dries in the presence of moisture, and right now we have more than enough humidity in the air. So it will set up on its own. Now we're done. I am on vacation this week, so I won't make no promises. I might be back other evenings. It'll probably be the same. Well, yeah, I probably will be back some other evening. I have some stuff. I'm going to do a demonstration with the super glues on the. I just hit something. What did I hit? Hit that. This group here, the Worldwide Woodturners, they meet every Wednesday night on Zoom. Go over, it's worldwidewoodturners.org. If you went into that web page, there's a direct link right into the Zoom meeting. It starts at, trying to think what time zone they're in. They're in a couple different times. For me, it starts at 7 o'clock at night, Eastern time zone, and they go till like usually past my bedtime. So I think they go till about 10 o'clock at night or something like that. You usually have a demonstration of some sort, lots of show and tell, lots of discussions on all things wood turning. It's a pretty interesting group, but not this Wednesday, but the following Wednesday I will be doing a demonstration with some of the stuff that I just used to finish my stuff with. And we'll get a little bit more in depth on what it is, what it does for you, things like that. But otherwise, we're here on Sunday evenings, generally around 6 o'clock, 6 or 6:30, Sunday evenings. I usually try and put it out on Instagram, what I'm going to be working on, but I wasn't totally sure what I was going to do tonight, so I didn't bother with that. But if you subscribed on YouTube or follow on Facebook, or follow on Twitch, you'll be notified. So other than that, you all have a good rest of your evening and a good week. And we got to end the YouTube one, and then we'll come back over to Twitch and